Good Tuesday, everyone. Hope you had a fantastic day today. In the news, there's been a lot going on with, as most people know, down in South Korea. People eat animals that otherwise aren't like normally ate here in other places. Like it could be in Europe, I guess, other parts of Europe. I'm not sure. Maybe we eat weird stuff, and that's okay in some places. You know, it's fine. So. One of the most important things to keep in mind is that people are allowed to eat what they eat to really give them an idea. We have to come into a social agreement, and that is what the government of South Korea, which is the president, and apparently his name is Moon, which is a really, just a really neat name. Like Moon is, I like the name. Says it's time to consider a ban on eating dog meat, although this has been in the news for a long time. I want to sort of go over why that might be something that has been going on for so long. Today's my birthday, and I feel like this is a good video to start the day. Yesterday was a good video as well too. If you haven't watched the video, then just go click on my profile and check it out. That one is a previous one, which is more so about another issue going on in life too. So, which had to do with like death and stuff, the plague, the Black Death, the bubonic plague itself, which caused a lot of issues, which is really cool of an idea of a topic for back in the day of how humans think, and that's sort of the general ideation of the channel. We're really the in-between, and we get a feel and an understanding for different types of communities and why they think like that. And what's really cool about South Korea is that they've done a couple of studies. I'm not really sure who they is, but from what I've heard, and I used to work and help out support an animal charity that was a massive one that actually worked for a huge part of the government itself to ensure the safety and such of animals, especially stray dogs, which is it's an enormous issue inside of South Korea and some other parts of Asia as well too. People eat the animal. And for an example, what happens on islands, other islands, for an example, let's just say there's a small island out there. I'm not going to get into detail about it, but you know, whatever. There's Cayman Island and all that, which is a beautiful place. But some areas dogs run straight and they beat the animal. They're like going to the washroom everywhere. They're just eating stuff they shouldn't. And sometimes they attack people, so people have a reason to fear for them. But at the same time, dogs are sort of humanized with people. What this really means is that people and the animals can work together to actually like have a better life instead of saying, oh, well, let's just start hurting each other. But I get it, right? Like poverty can create issues, which is actually part of societal decline and economic destruction overall. In the end, though, I found it really cool with these two stats that I'm just going to point out here. So in one article, they were saying that about 80% of South Koreans in 2018 had not eaten dog meat the previous year. So about 1 million dogs were still killed in South Korea for food. Which how many people, like out of all the people in South Korea, how many dogs have to die for how many certain people, right? Like the population of South Korea, let's see here. Anyways, there's 51 million, but there's 1 million dogs. So it just shows that maybe there has been change with people that are eating the food, but it's still there. And that's like 1 million dogs. When you think of the number 1 million, like you remember the song, the $1 million. Like if I had that, you know, I'd not be depressed and I wouldn't have anxiety and stuff, right? I wouldn't be doing bad things to myself to try to have fun, but we all do that anyways. But on the mean side, so they're going out and they're doing all of this to their community. They're making changes, but in the way that the president or the government guy, Mr. Moon, wants to have a social agreement with the people. So socially, it has to go through everyone, and then something can happen. I'm not sure what they're going to do with like polls and all that, but people do eat it, and it seems to be a part of their just their way of life and such. Like you can say, oh well, 80% of people haven't tried meat last year, dog meat. Well, you know, the studies would say otherwise. You kill 1 million dogs, they could probably feed like, I don't know how big are the dogs, right? But I mean, like there's meat on that dog. You can feed a couple of people for one dog at least, right? So then there's like 2 million people being fed by the dogs, unless you're just one of those morbidly obese people that feed off of dogs with the cannibalistic idea that eating man's best friend can actually have a positive change inside of your life. Right, so yeah, just bizarre findings within people, but it makes sense to why they do that in exchange for stuff like poverty and the animals running about, which means that people aren't maintaining the animal in a way that should be beneficial for humankind, which is what dogs have been always known to do, even back in the day. Like, we have that giant Newfie breed, the big one with all the hair all over it. Looks like it has dreadlocks just floating around, doing its like little whipping thing in the air. It whips its hair back and forth, having fun, you know. And I'm not saying that in like a way that's sarcastic. Like, these dogs are really into it. Like, they like throwing their hair in circles, and then they go and save people at the same time, which is really cool. So yeah, there's a lot of animals, like I guess like maybe even the Siberian Husky, that were beneficial to many people of that certain country, right? Like Siberia, for an example. I don't know though. Sometimes you look into it and you find out that animal isn't from there, but the dog is meant to be like people's best friend. I don't want to say man's now. If I say man's, people will be like, hey man's, you messing up. You got problems. Let's start to make that change. So let's do that, right? So instead of going out there and eating all these animals, we're slowly getting through that. The idea is to understand what other ways that we can do to help benefit the people with the animals as well too. I think overall, like, greed might be playing a part in it. Like, as we know, it plays a part in a lot of roles in society itself as a whole. So let's try to change that greed that we have inside of us so our heart doesn't turn into black dust. Yeah, that thick lead that we have inside of ourselves needs to change, right? We can't be absorbing that through our veins consistently and expect things not to change. So with all these animal charities going in there and having major impacts, even in other places like Thailand and Philippines, like, we know that some animals have been eaten that probably shouldn't have been. But yeah, some of the Asian meals are different. But for what we eat too, we're doing the same thing. Like, you know, would you eat meat from a donor, right? But we can see why that's wrong. In the long term, eating meat, I guess maybe it'll show us that it isn't necessarily the best way to go all the time, but they do find, studies have found that like vegans, vegetarians have a lower risk of like cancers and such due to the antioxidants and the materials that they're intaking inside of themselves. But this isn't really to vouch for veganism. It's about vouching and supporting social economics, I guess, in the way that people work together and make changes inside of themselves and other people. So it's really what I'm getting at today, and I think that sort of made a big impact with everything going on. Overall, I just want to say that we don't really know where we're at 100% with this. Like, people just don't know that because the stats are so bizarre when it comes to these. Like, but you know, the news isn't always the most reputable source, but working with the charities, I do know and I do understand that sometimes things have happened, right? I've looked into a bit, but you know, over time, with it only being like maybe like 7 years or so of working within that time frame of the charities, maybe things are changing, preventing the culling of animals, herding them together and executing them for many different reasons. And oftentimes they are excruciating, like they're electrifying, right? Like, when you think of electrifying, you want it to be like a good experience. Like, you go out there and experience happiness when you go out and like destroy all these animals. Like, let's be real with ourselves. Sometimes we're doing sick things that need to be changed. Yeah, you know, play with the dog and give it some food. Some people do, and I know that from other countries. Like in the Philippines, they'll feed their dogs and, you know, their cats or whatever, and some people have like 10 or 15 dogs per family, but maybe they have friends everywhere. They go to like, hey neighbor, you know, feed me too, because even animals are a bit greedy. But yeah, it just shows that changes are being made slowly and surely. But thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, stay away from eating humans, and like cannibalistic behavior is something that is shunned upon in most societies. So just let's not do that or talk about that anymore. Why was that even a thing? Peace.